Yeah.
The American people don't know what's going on in this country.
The enemy's public. They really give a damn.
The country is going to hell.
The enemy's public.
It ain't black people sending it there. There is no mystery God. Absolutely no mystery God.
You are the future, and we are depending on you to unite, to overcome your differences, and organize a system under the set of principles that the original people of this planet follow.
The enemy's public.
Get your copy. Get your copy of Fire. It's definitely a must-read. If you enjoy hood books, this one is it. Just like the title of the book, it's officially Fire. Get it on Amazon, paperback or Kindle.
I don't know how I got here. I just know I'm never going back. Just when I thought things were already crazy, it gets worse.
I'm back.
Quan?
Sapphire struggles to deal with her husband's alleged betrayal and coming to terms with Quan being alive after thinking he was deceased. Devante tries to keep a level head while dealing with family issues and unexpected disloyalty. Memories of Dre enters Devante's life in a way that he would have never imagined.
Fire Part 2, the finale.
Peace. This is the enemy's public. And I am Bro.Nasir. I hope everyone's enjoying this beautiful Friday evening. But this evening, I want to speak about a black face on Zionism. We have plenty of black faces on Zionism, but I want to speak about one in particular. But before I do that, I want to pay homage to the Queen, the woman who defended our people and defended freedom, justice, and equality. Assata Shakur. I'd like to pay homage to her. Our sister was a strong sister who defended freedom. She resided in Cuba, I believe it was since 1979. She was shot by state police in New Jersey, about a mile from where I grew up at. Exit 9, coming off the New Jersey Turnpike in New Brunswick, on the borderline of East Brunswick and New Brunswick. The bridge is now named after the cop who was killed, I believe, by a scared cop when they ambushed the Black Liberation Army. Because according to the medical examiner and the physician that examined our sister, Asada Shakur, she couldn't have shot Trooper Forrester because she was shot in her arm and she was shot in her shoulder while her hands were up. So she couldn't have shot Trooper Forrester. Salute to my Jersey brethren, Warfare K. Thanks for joining, brother. I appreciate it. So the sister shot Asada Shakur couldn't have shot the trooper. He died after they ambushed people who weren't doing anything. Because every charge that they put on Sister Asada, she beat. They couldn't get her with anything. Back then, in the 60s and 70s, like today, the police are very crooked. They're very vindictive, and they can be very abusive with their vindictiveness. And they will ambush one of us and take our lives if they could. And they would get away with it. It's not like it is now with body cameras, though they thumb their nails and their nose at the body camera today. They'll do something right on the body camera and don't even care, because in their mind they've been identified, and held blameless for whatever they do. No matter what they do, they're blameless according to this, society. I just want to pay homage to Sister Asada Shakur, and I will have a video presentation also of the Sister Asada Shakur. Back in 1977, I believe, she escaped from prison. She was sentenced to life in prison plus 30 years, I believe. In prison, she was held in Clinton Correctional Facilities, a state prison in Clinton, New Jersey, now called Etna Monahan Prison for Women in Clinton, New Jersey. The Black Liberation Army broke her out. She escaped, and she resided in Cuba, and she was given asylum by our comrades in Cuba, Fidel and Raul Castro. There's been plenty of attempts to go try and apprehend her, bring her back to the United States. Yet, all the way until she passed away, she was protected by Cuba. So I have a lot of respect for Cuba for doing this, protecting our sister and not allowing anyone, no matter where they came from, to come and bring her back to the United States and put her in some prison. But this is regarded as the most successful prison escape in history. Asada Shakur.
Asada Shakur, born Joanne Deborah Byron on July 16, 1947, in Queens, New York, is a former member of the Black Liberation Army, BLA, and a key figure in the Black Power movement. She is also the godmother of artist Tupac Shakur. Her life has included activism, legal battles, and a dramatic prison escape. Raised in Queens and briefly living in Wilmington, North Carolina, she returned to New York to attend Borough of Manhattan Community College and City College. There, she became active in radical politics, joining the Black Panther Party and later the BLA, an underground group that viewed the U.S. government as oppressive and supported armed resistance. Between 1971 and 1973, in her mid-20s, Shakur faced charges in multiple states, including a bank robbery in Queens, a $7,700 heist in the Bronx, a kidnapping in Brooklyn, and an armed robbery at a Brooklyn social club. Prosecutors claimed she acted as an accomplice, lookout, and getaway planner, but most charges were dropped or ended in acquittals due to lack of evidence, procedural issues, or failure of witnesses to identify her. At 25, Shakur was riding on the New Jersey Turnpike with BLA members Zaid Malik Shakur, 25, and Sundiata Akoli, 36, when they were pulled over by state troopers James Harper and Verna Forster. Harper asked for ID. A scuffle broke out. Zaid was shot in the chest and killed. Forster was disarmed and shot twice with his own weapon, once in the shoulder, once fatally in the head. Harper was wounded but survived. Shakur was shot in the arm and shoulder. She claimed her hands were raised and she never fired. She and her allies stayed at the scene until police arrived. In 1977, after a 6-week trial, Shakur was convicted of first-degree murder.
If they murdered the state trooper, why would they stay at the scene until the police arrived? I would think if someone shot and killed a New Jersey state trooper, they will have to catch up to whoever did it. They wouldn't stay on the scene and wait till the cops arrive.
Armed robbery and related charges, despite conflicting testimony and forensic evidence showing she was already injured before Forster was shot. The jury found her guilty and sentenced her to life plus 33 years. On November 2nd, 1979, at age 32, Shakur escaped from Clinton Correctional Facility for Women in New Jersey. The Black Liberation Army and May 19th Communist Organization orchestrated the breakout. 3 associates, Sylvia Baraldini, Sekou Odinga, and Mutulu Shakur, the stepfather of Tupac Shakur, smuggled in guns in a false-bottomed briefcase while posing as legal aides. They drew weapons, took 2 guards hostage, and hijacked a prison van. The group switched vehicles and vanished into a network of safe houses. No shots were fired and no one was harmed. It remains one of the most high-profile and successful prison escapes in U.S. history. Shakur resurfaced in Cuba in 1984 and was granted asylum. As of 2025, she still resides there. In 2013, the FBI added her to its most wanted terrorists list, the first woman included, and offered a $1 million reward. Cuba has refused extradition.
And that was under Barack Obama. Not only did they put her on the FBI most wanted list, he doubled the bounty on her. This was, done under Barack Obama.
Citing her political refugee status, Shakur maintains her innocence and calls herself a political prisoner.
She was a political prisoner until she escaped to freedom. And
this is a spiritual fight for the soul of America.
Hold on. I'm not going to go here yet, but I just want to introduce this clip before I start going into this. Now, this is not about, it's about Charlie Kirk. It's concerning Charlie Kirk, but it's really not about Charlie Kirk. It's about AIPAC, the Zionists, putting a black face on Zionism. Now, Dennis Quaid, Dave Smith, and Brandon Tatum were having a heated debate on Piers Morgan the other day, and it was as if Benjamin Netanyahu came to Brandon Tatum with a script, and he got a part in a movie. And everything that Brandon Tatum was saying was talking points used by Benjamin Netanyahu. I've never seen such ignorance, stupidity, and tap dancing, caping for Israel in my life. And it was done by someone who is clueless to the history of Israel, the past and present. He was clueless about what he was talking about. And he was made a fool of, something that we are accustomed to seeing this nitwit being made a fool of. But he took the money from AIPAC. He took the money from Benjamin Netanyahu. He took the money. There's no way he didn't take the money, because why would Benjamin Netanyahu, the prime minister of Israel, want to talk to a dumb nigga YouTuber? Why would they want to do that, except that they would use him to push an agenda and put a black face on their rhetoric and their agenda?
Dancing on Charlie's grave. I wouldn't even call these guys leftist or Democrats. I call them ghouls.
You called me, I think, a devil and one of the worst people in America.
He is not committing a genocide in Gaza. I think that's disingenuous.
What they should do is embrace a two-state solution. Ultimately, they should stop occupying a people as they've been doing.
Now we know where this is going already by the introduction of the program. Brandon Tatum said Israel, the IDF, Benjamin Netanyahu, they are not committing a genocide on the Palestinians in Gaza.
5 times and the Arabs rejected it.
No, they haven't. Okay, now
5 times and the Arabs rejected it.
Yeah, I get it. I know you're going to hit every Hasbro talking point. That's not true.
There's no policy to murder kids. It's urban warfare. Unfortunately, people die.
For the 15th.
This nigga reduced genocide to urban warfare like it's 2 gangs in LA fighting and people die. He reduced it to that. What I don't understand is, I understand it because Piers Morgan is a piece of shit himself. Why he would bring somebody like Brandon Tatum, a former Tucson, Arizona police officer who quit in 2016, to go work for the man and work with the man who was just unalived earlier this month.
Time, you're 100% wrong. You don't know what you're talking about. If you think
lying.
That Israel has just been
fact
trying,
check.
no,
People
you're
that are
just
watching
dumb.
this fact.
Hollywood is not exactly overloaded by proud patriots with a knack for saying it how many regular people see it. Dennis Quaid is a notable exception. Many uncensored viewers were energized and moved by his previous appearances on this show, and I'm pleased to say that he rejoins me again now. Dennis, great to have you back.
Piers, wonderful to be here with you again. Thanks for having me.
You know, I was really keen to talk to you because you did Charlie Kirk's podcast, I think, last year to promote your movie Reagan. So you knew him a bit. You interacted with him a bit. Where were you when you heard that he'd been killed?
I was in my car, and it had just happened. It was another one of those, where were you when like when Kennedy was shot or whatever, and I just couldn't believe it. that it happened again. It just brought up all of those feelings that I felt whenever we hear devastating news like that.
Well, this is something that Charlie Kirk said should happen. He said that we should have a certain amount of deaths by guns in order to preserve the Second Amendment, our God-given rights, and that's to bear arms. He said it should be a certain amount, not knowing that he would be in that number. But this is something that he spoke into existence. It's not his fault that somebody shot him, but he did speak it into existence. He did.
Again, and it made me sad for our country.
What is going on in America, do you think, that has led a 22-year-old young man?
I wonder, did he feel sad when, I wonder, did Dennis Quaid feel sad to see a young lady go into her window just to see who was in her backyard and got shot in her chest through her window? I wonder, did he feel sad when a 36-year-old followed the 17-year-old after being told not to do it and ended up shooting him dead? Was he sad about that? Was he sad about a young sister being pulled over while she was on a trip to possibly go to college? She ended up being arrested because she refused to put her cigarette out in her car. So she was taken and arrested and then ended up dead. Is that sad, or is it just sad that a loudmouth racist who was paid to go around and regurgitate false statistics and spew hate about our people, a coward who spewed hate and false statistics to young people of the college age, not our young people, but his young people, to indoctrinate them in the event, the possibility that they grow up to be unlike him. But they sent Charlie Kirk in to indoctrinate young people who are white, because he didn't go to HBCUs. He went to predominantly all white colleges. That's where he went to.
To do this?
It reminds me of, in a way, of the 60s, of what we went through. Back then, I think we were a nation that was a little naive, and until Kennedy got shot, there was such hope, and then Kennedy was shot.
John F. Kennedy was the president of the United States. Charlie Kirk was a loudmouth, paid off peon for AIPAC. He was nobody. They're trying to make him like he was a political figure. The only thing that tied Charlie Kirk to politics is a possibility that politicians are involved in his death. That's about it. Foreign and domestic.
Shot. You had Martin Luther King shot. Robert Kennedy was shot. Like those were 2 months apart. We had Kent State. We had Woodstock, and then we had Altamont, which ended things. There was a lot of people. This country was very divided, and people were at each other's throats. But at least we were listening to each other. There was a real debate going on in this country, and but now it's the hate speech, which has gotten way too high. And start reaching out to one another, being tolerant with one another, and
that's not what Taliban
sure.
is. Now I'm going to skip past Dennis Quaid and go straight to the debate with Dave Smith and Brandon Tatum's buffoonish
position of being a bit like I did, I think, of being very pro-Israel's right to defend itself, to getting increasingly concerned about the scale of what has been happening in the last few months in Gaza. What is your sense about that, and how significant is it?
Well, I mean, I think it's significant. I think it's really a fascinating story that maybe it would have been appropriate to wait a few more weeks before we really started getting into, but everyone dove into it, including the Prime Minister of Israel, right away. And I'll tell you what I know for sure, what I think most people know, is that, look, Charlie Kirk was in a different position than, say, just a commentator like Ben Shapiro or like me or you, Pierce, or he was organizing a youth movement to, support Republican candidates. And the youth are really abandoning support for Israel. And so he had a very difficult job as like the movement guy who's trying to keep a big tent going. And so he was attempting to do that. And you could see this at his last big event where I debated there, where he had speakers like Tucker Carlson and Megyn Kelly, who said some things, and I'm sure myself too, who said some things that really upset some of his backers and some of the more hardcore Zionists out there. And he was quite open in his interview with Megyn Kelly about talking about the dynamic that you've experienced. I had a post on Twitter that or X that went viral about you, which I believe you reposted.
I did.
But I was just using you, like you were the latest example in this trend, which a lot of people have experienced, where people who are generally pro-Israel.
And that's what it was, mainly. Charlie Kirk was sent to defend Israel and have increased the rank and file of those who would defend Israel, who are young people. But you can't deny and ignore, unless you are a dumb nigga like Brandon Tatum, what's going on in Israel. To call that less than genocide is a disservice to the whole entire human family. But this dude here would actually utter the words that Benjamin Netanyahu and Israel, the IDF, not the people of Israel, the government of Israel, he said they're not committing genocide. Can't tell me he didn't take money.
In many cases have been pro-Israel their entire lives, have an issue with something that Israel does. They go a little bit too far for them, and they start criticizing them for that, and they're immediately met with accusations of being an anti-Semite and essentially the new Adolf Hitler. And I do think that that's very jarring and often has the effect of just pushing people.
See, the anti-Semitic thing, because people criticize Israel, is losing its power. And they're a little upset about that, and they're a little nervous about that, because that's losing its power because of what Israel's been doing since the conflict started on the Gaza Strip against the Palestinians. There's no excusing that. There's no defending that unless you're just turning a blind eye to it, unless you are paid to do it. You can't defend that unless you're paid to do it. And we're going to witness it. We're going to find out. We know Brandon Tatum took money. I don't understand how, okay, with the Talmud, how they feel about who he say he believe in. How could you support that when you say you are a Christian and what the Talmud said about Jesus? If that's what your faith is, the only logical thing to consider is he was paid off. But Brandon Tatum probably would never buck because he's a good slave. He's a good slave, and he'll probably serve him until his raggedy ass die.
People further away from Israel. Now, I don't think that was happening in Charlie Kirk's case, but I do think he was certainly grappling with how do you keep this movement together when the young people who you're trying to galvanize and organize are abandoning Israel at an incredibly rapid rate.
Officer Tatum.
Now, Turning Point USA, again, I've said this several times on several platforms. Turning Point USA is not the brainchild of Charlie Kirk. He's the face of it, the latest face of it. That's where he was. It's not his brainchild. All you have to do is follow the money, and you'll find out who thought of Turning Point USA, whose idea is whose agenda it is of Turning Point USA. Giving him tens of millions of dollars, almost $100 million to do what he was doing, going to debate college-age students who are white, mostly. Because if you look at the debates, if you watch the debates, the children who he was debating as a 30-plus-year-old debating college students haven't even lived, or they were clueless of what they were debating, and they approached the situation emotional, and they couldn't handle him talking over them, asking questions, and then when they go to answer the question, he interrupts them. That's his cadence. Ask a question. When you go to answer it, he interrupts you with a lie, with a false statistic. Trying to sound intelligent, but not equivalent, because everything he said, nothing he said ever added up. He just said those things that are propagated by those who pay him. But every time he debated a young brother or sister, don't care where he went, he got mopped up. They mopped the floor with him with just pure logic.
What's your response to that?
Yeah, but my response is very similar. You know, I knew Charlie very well, and I know a lot of people that know Charlie. And I think that Charlie was wrestling with this conflict. I don't think that in any way he was changing his perspective on Israel, because Charlie's love for Israel goes beyond who's running Israel, goes beyond Benjamin Netanyahu. It goes deeper. It goes to a spiritual level. And Charlie was unwavering on that. But I do think, and I know this for a fact, that he was getting a lot of pressure because the youth was abandoning Israel to a certain degree, and it bothered him because he wanted Israel to do better with their PR to try to capture these young minds so they don't fall or be against Israel, because Charlie had a deep love and respect for Israel. So he was feeling the pressure, and a lot of people can't handle that pressure. And I think that Charlie was in a unique position. Unlike me, I don't care what people say to me. I don't really care. But when it comes to Charlie, he does care about what the young people are saying, because that is the establishment of all that he worked for so many years. So I don't blame him for it, but I do know that it was the pressure that he was feeling. Megyn Kelly was feeling the pressure. And some people just, when that pressure is on, they try to move to a central point so they don't have to deal with it.
Dave Smith, there was a Tucker Carlson made.
That's an umbrella statement, but they don't understand. But they're not saying what kind of pressure and what the pressure is. They'll just say pressure and leave it to our imagination. But we all know what the pressure is. You know, that pressure, that type of pressure that busts pipes. But they won't say it though because they don't have the fortitude to say it.
A pretty powerful speech, actually. I thought in many ways certainly captivated the audience yesterday at the memorial for Charlie Kirk. But included what he described as his favorite story. Let's take a listen.
Ultimately, he was a Christian evangelist. And it actually reminds me of my favorite story ever. So it's about two.
This kills me when you will have these so-called evangelists or the and what you call it evangelicals who don't even know the scriptures. They hack the scriptures. They hack the Bible. And their behavior, their mindset does not suggest that they are nowhere near a Christ figure. Their behavior, their mindset, what they stand on, their outright racism don't suggest that they're loving people as who they say Christ was in the scripture.
2,000 years ago in Jerusalem, and Jesus shows up and he starts talking about the people in power, and he starts doing the worst thing that you can do, which is telling the truth about people, and they hate it, and they just go bonkers. They hate it, and they become obsessed with making him stop. This guy's got to stop talking. We've got to shut this guy up. And I can just sort of picture the scene in a lamplit room with a bunch of guys sitting around eating hummus, thinking about what do we do about this guy telling the truth about us. We must make him stop talking. And there's always one guy with the bright idea, and I can just hear him say, I've got an idea. Why don't we just kill him? That'll shut him up. That'll fix the problem.
I'm good. I'm live, brother.
Dave Smith, what did you make of that?
Yes, sir.
I don't know. I mean, I see people freaking out about this on social media today, but I think what I took from the message was that, yeah, he's telling the foundational story of Christianity and making the point that obviously Charlie Kirk was, you know, when you're assassinating someone for the crime of trying to have open dialogue and discussion, the idea is you're trying to silence that guy. You're against this discussion taking place. And I think the point Tucker was making was that, you know, if
it wasn't about that. It was nothing about what that young man was doing across the nation and on these campuses. It was nothing about that. It was something way deep and deeper than what he was doing. It was his stance on Israel about what Israel was doing. That's when they call you back in, say they want to talk to you, invite you to Israel, or invite you to Long Island, having an intervention, and you refuse to come. They get upset about that, especially after you took money from them. You take money from these people, they're whore forever, and you're not going to be left alone doing that one thing. You have to push that agenda. You can't waver. You have to be 6 o'clock, not 6:01. Not 1 minute after 6, not 1 second after 6, straight up and straight down, 6 o'clock with what they're doing, straight up and straight down. You can't waver one iota. Once they put you on an agenda and put you on their mission, it's about their mission, not your mission. It's their mission, not your mission after you take money from them.
If killing someone silenced their ideas, then the last several thousand years of Western civilization would look quite differently. And
again, Turning Point USA was not his idea. It was the idea of its donors.
That the idea being that Charlie Kirk's his ideas are now going to have, which is I think just factually true, a larger platform and resonate with more people than they even could have in his life.
As indeed did Jesus Christ's views after his crucifixion. Obviously,
now, why are they doing that? Piers Morgan is a piece of shit for saying that, because Charlie Kirk, to compare him with anybody, especially a Jesus or somebody, a Christ figure, to compare him to anything that's good is doing a disservice to anything that's good, because he was not a good person by a long shot. Was not a good person.
Tatum, I mean, a lot of people have tried to spin this as Tucker Carlson being anti-Semitic, very predictable, because that's the stick used to beat anyone that does anything that may possibly be construed that way. What did you make of that part of his speech?
Well, I want to address the anti-Semitic thing. I think that people, and this is my advice to people who are Zionists or people who are Jews, you got to stop with the pushing the anti-Semitic thing every time somebody says something you don't like. You have to stop. I was just talking to a friend yesterday that said he just got bombarded with people calling him an anti-Semite because he shared a post of somebody who, may have had a difference of opinion. So that needs to stop, or you're going to lose all credibility and respect from good people that love you. Now, Tucker Carlson, when I first watched it, I'm gonna be honest, I didn't think none of it. I don't really like Tucker very much, but and I do think that he has a lot of negative things to say unjustifiably about Israel, but he's entitled to his own opinion. But I can see why some people are thinking that he may have been subliminally saying things that were connecting Israel to this whole thing. Now, I don't go down the bandwagon because I can't unequivocally prove that, but I did find it interesting that he had made mention as if Charlie was really an attack or attacking the government, as if Charlie's death was directly associated with government officials, when in fact, it was really these narcissistic lunatics that are over-medicated that hate Charlie because he's countering the arguments that we see that's pervasive on campus. The government is not taking extreme positions as the kids on campus are taking. They're brainwashed. I've been on campus. I've been to probably 40 universities. The kids on campus don't live in reality. They live in an alternate reality. They don't live like we do. We pay taxes. We have to go to work.
And that's why he targeted them, because they're clueless. You just, gave up the answers. He targeted them because they're clueless. Why don't he go and talk to to go to children and tell children that black people are 13% of the population and commit 53% of the crimes? Why are you going to white children, white students on a university campus talking about us? Why are we the subject on these white campuses? Make that make sense.
We have to be nuanced about arguments and things that we get involved in. They are completely radicalized. So I think that people could take it a certain way, but let me tell you this. It seems as if Charlie was very good friends with Tucker Carlson. And it seems to me that Tucker Carlson can say whatever he want to say, and that may be the way he liked to grieve, but that's the way that he wanted to present himself at a ceremony. And I think people should leave it alone unless you have unequivocal evidence that he was somehow trying to do that, because you cheapen the love and respect and dedication that all of the people who spoke at the ceremony had for Charlie Kirk's life. People got to stop trying to go too deep on both sides. Let the man be loved and appreciated by everybody who was on stage, and quit trying to conjure up controversy and conspirations.
Pierce, could I just add to that? Because I do think there's something kind of interesting, like, because having a black conservative and a Jewish guy who's like a critic of Israel, there's always like some parallels that I see between those two positions. And I think maybe we could, across the board on all of these things, people got to just stop making accusations of bigotry based off of what you're guessing the other person was dog whistling. Like, you're saying that there was a secret message hidden somewhere in what the other person said. Listen, say what you will about Tucker Carlson. I know Brandon said he's not a big fan. I love the guy. Of all the things you could criticize him for, he'll tell you how he feels. I promise you. He'll tell you how he feels. If he has a controversial view, he'll say it. He's not hiding some view embedded in his story here. And people got to get over this, man. There's just, if we couldn't take one lesson away from the last 15 years, that making these accusations of bigotry to shut down conversations and making these accusations where there's no tangible evidence that they exist, they do not solve the problem of real bigotry. They make the problem much worse. And everybody should back back off of that. Now, I do want to ask, though, I got to say, because as you mentioned there, you said that, your friend was being called anti-Semitic for sharing a clip of what someone else thought. And listen, man, we don't know each other, but literally the only interaction we've ever had is you called me, I think, a devil and one of the worst people in America the other day, also for sharing a clip
disgusting.
of somebody else.
No.
Devil.
That's great. I'm glad you brought it up. Because there's a reason why I said that. It's not that I somehow mentioned something about you just in passing. You shared a post of one of the most disingenuous, evil individuals that I've ever seen online. Nick Fuentes shamed Charlie. Ever since 2017, he would come out, harass, accost Charlie at events. He would harass his wife. Him and the gropers would harass my wife because she's white. And this guy said Charlie is a fake Christian and he's disgusting and he should never be able to be on campus without being shouted down. And then
According to the scripture, he's a fake Christian, and so is Brandon Tatum, or fake Christians. Because if you don't have compassion for humanity, you are not Christ-like according to the scripture. I've never seen Brandon Tatum come out in defense for his own people. He believed everything that any white supremacist would say about his own people, and he will refer to us as they, like he's not one of us. We don't want you, but for you to refer to us as they, or these black people, or those black people, that's how he referred to us.
And he comes out and makes a fake apology, and I felt like you supported that. And then also, my art with you, I had never met you before. I disagree with you on Israel, but I respect that you come with your opinions. But when you were on stage at SAS and you chastised those young people and said they can never claim to be pro-life ever again because they support a genocide, I thought that was the most disgusting thing that any...
If they support Israel and what Israel is doing, they could never say they're pro-life again because they are supporting a genocide. I don't know. I don't see how that's disgusting.
Adult man could say to young kids who was just seeking the truth and openly listening to a debate between you and another individual. So the only reason I said that is based on those principles alone. I don't know you personally, but I thought that was disgusting. And anybody who support that Nick Fuentes guy who shamed my friend who's now dead, it bothers me to no end.
Dave?
Okay, well, look, I mean, again, I said I give him all the credit in the world for this. And what was this? This was after Charlie Kirk was killed, him saying that he was a good man, that he's praying for his soul, and urging his supporters not to be violent in response to this. And I got to say, I thought, as I think many of us did immediately after Charlie was killed, and immediately after your first reaction of feeling so horrible on a personal level for his family, you realize this is a very dangerous situation. And I got to say, for Nick Fuentes, being who he is, to have him telling his audience, hey, if you respond at all with violence to this, I completely disown you. We need to be Christians about this. We need to be peaceful. We should be praying for him and his family. I give him credit for that. Whatever other beef you got with him, that's between you two. I didn't say I agree with the guy on everything he's ever said. Well, hold on. Let me just respond. I didn't endorse everything the guy's ever said. I said I give him all the credit in the world for this, and then shared the clip of this. Pretty clear what I was saying. And by the way, I didn't chastise the kids at Charlie.
How could he Dave Smith be disgusting for sharing a clip of Nick Fuentes saying not to be violent and to have a sentiment about the young man who was just murdered? And this dude is he's such a damn nitwit.
Charlie Kirk's event, I warned them that if you're supporting the destruction of a captive stateless people in Gaza right now, that you will never be able to claim to be pro-life again without being rightfully viewed as the biggest hypocrite in the universe.
And that's the truth. It's like if you are a animal rights activist and you eat burgers, you're a hypocrite. If you are an animal rights activist and you eat burgers, you eat steaks, you eat chicken, you cannot be an animal rights activist and eat meat. You just can't. You're a hypocrite.
That's an opinion that I will gladly defend. And I noticed in there, you're not actually taking on that argument. You're just telling me how disgusting I am for having it. So listen, man, I think that if there's one thing Charlie would have wanted, it probably would have been for us to have this conversation without devolving into insults. You can say it's disgusting if you want to. I think there's a pretty strong argument for my point there. I think it's kind of undeniable. There's a real conflict between being pro-life and then also supporting a policy, the price tag of which is tens of thousands of slaughtered babies, children.
Well, on that point, Officer Tatum, let me, I will let you respond, but let me just put that directly to you, because one of the reasons that I've become increasingly critical of Netanyahu's government, and you interviewed Netanyahu a couple of weeks ago on your YouTube show, and we'll play a clip from that in a moment, but
can you imagine the prime minister of Israel being interviewed by a YouTuber? Just do the knowledge to that and just really consider what's going on. The prime minister of Israel having anything to say to a nigger YouTuber except that he's going to use them to push their agenda. Nothing else. Nothing else.
But one of my, and he won't do my show, just for the record, since the war started, because I think one of the reasons he won't do me is because I would say to him, you're not achieving any of your war aims. You know, you're not getting...
Brandon didn't criticize what he was doing on the Gaza Strip one iota. That's why he would pick up Brandon Tatum, because Brandon Tatum will tap dance. Brandon Tatum would sing any song he wanted. Any song he wanted, the pitch or range he wanted singing. That's the reason why he wouldn't come to your channel or your program, Piers Morgan, because you're going to ask the critical questions. Brandon Tatum's just going to be a bobblehead because he said that he was in Israel and a child spit on him and somebody chastised the child for spitting on him. And that's how he fell in love with Israel, through spit. Somebody said, no, that's not nice to spit. If that child spit on you, that means that child was taught to spit on you.
Getting the hostages released. In fact, if anything, I'd say you're imperiling their lives more every day this goes on. You're not defeating Hamas, that much is clear. You're causing endless more devastation. Your cabinet right-wing members like Smodrich, Ben-Gvir and others, they're talking openly about ethnically cleansing all the Palestinians. You know, are you not concerned, Officer Tatum, with a fair-minded head of...
He's literally, openly talking about ethnic cleansing of the genocide of the Palestinian people. And he's not leaving it there. Benjamin Netanyahu wants the entire region. Donald Trump wants a piece of it. You're talking about making it a damn resort.
Head about this, that actually it is no longer about a retaliatory self-defensive strike.
No, it's not.
What happens on October the 7th, but part of a much bigger plan, which many on the hard right in Israel have harbored for a long time.
They took a page out of George W. Bush's book. Use 911 to go around the world and say you're fighting terrorism. You're committing terrorism under the guise of fighting terrorism. That's what George W. Bush did with shock and awe and the war on terror that turned out to be the war of terror all over the damn planet. Anybody who he wanted to actually attack under the guise of fighting terrorism. That's what Benjamin Netanyahu's doing. That's their 911. October 7th, that's their 911. And they're using it. to commit genocide.
Displaced Palestinians from their home in Gaza and from large swathes of the West Bank. Does that not concern you?
Okay, great question. Let me address a few things. I think that Nick Fuentes is disingenuous, and I felt like Dave Smith is intelligent enough, and I'm not challenging your intelligence, but I believe that you can see through the bullcrap on so many other people, and I felt like you should have seen the bullcrap through Nick Fuentes because he's just saying that to save face now that Charlie is dead, and all the way up to his death, he shamed him. When it comes to the pro-life situation, there's a very big difference between articulating whether a person believes that life starts at conception, not perception, versus a person disagreeing with urban warfare and the way that Israel's carrying out their attacks in Gaza. That's two different things.
Everybody knows this, but there's no way you can say that people being killed in the tens of thousands, lives that are started, men, women, and children who are not soldiers, who are not involved in that foolishness, or there's no way you can say that's not genocide. No way.
Things, they should not be conflated. When it comes to my concerns for Benjamin Netanyahu and his tactics in Israel, or his tactics against Gaza, there's a few things here. I think that Benjamin Netanyahu, and because the nature of the interview wasn't really a debate, it was more so me asking him questions that my audience wanted me to ask him and him putting the answers out there, and people can debate that. But I think a lot of people that I know in Israel, including myself and others that are staunch Zionists, think that he is prolonging the war too long and is causing too much damage and irreversible reputational damage. He should have ended it sooner, and he should have went harder. In America, if we had faced such brutality, rape, people getting their heads cut off, I saw videos of people getting their heads cut off, we would have been swift.
Yes, IDF were raping, and they were cutting people's heads off. They were bombing restaurants, they were bombing schools, bombing mosques, bombing hospitals. But their excuse was that those areas were harboring people, or what's the name of the they were harboring enemy combatants. So they bombed it, and they made the excuse that somebody was being hidden there. That is so old. That is played out. It's almost as played out as them saying, okay, Iran they're close to developing a nuclear weapon. He's been saying that since 1994. And to this day, they don't have weapons. But they bombed them recently on that pretense. And then when Iran started fighting back, who do they call? They called the United States, wanting the United States to get involved with a conflict that they started.
Within 48 hours, would have caused the most damage that you've ever seen to a country in world history. And Netanyahu, for whatever reason, is capitulating, in my personal opinion, to his own personal image, and that he don't want to look bad. He don't want to be shamed. He don't want people to say that he's committing a genocide. So he's playing in the middle for too long. 2 years of this war is too much. He should have eliminated Hamas immediately, and he should not worry about the naysayers. He's darned if he do, he's darned if he don't. He is not committing a genocide in Gaza. I think that's disingenuous at best, because no one committing a genocide will be giving food or aid to a people that they're trying to kill. They would not be sending leaflets.
That's nonsense, because if he was giving aid to the people on the Gaza Strip, why are children starving to death? Why are men, women, and children starving to death? See, this sounds just like Benjamin Netanyahu. This is what this sounds like. It sounds like Benjamin Netanyahu got his hand up Brandon Tatum's ass, and he's a goddamn sock puppet. That's what it sounds like. Because there's aid being sent to Gaza, to the Palestinians, but they're not allowed to have it. It was a brother who went over there to help deliver the stuff personally, and they snatched his ass up. Out of everybody there, they snatched him up, who was trying to deliver the aid. And then when the people are going to actually go and get the aid, they're met with gunshots over their head, people getting shot just going to get food, medical supplies for, that would suffice them as a family. Pampers, whatever aid they're sending to them, they're not allowed to get it. This is ethnic cleansing and genocide at its best, or should I say worst.
And advising people of buildings as they're going to tear down. The population has grown in Gaza from 1948 all the way up until today. 500,000 they started with. They're at 2 million at this point. When did the genocide start? There is no genocide. People can argue the tactics that Netanyahu is displaying in Gaza, but you cannot be superfluous and add these arguments that seems to, in my opinion, be anti-Semitic in many ways. It's not. These people are terrorists, and not the Gazan people.
Here you go. You just said that. Such a hypocrite. Now, he said that Jewish people, Zionist people, need to stop saying people are anti-Semitic because they disagree. People know what they're watching. I can't see something. You tell me, no, that's not what I'm looking at. That's not what I'm seeing. I don't care what opinion you have. If I see children starving, that's what I'm seeing. Children starving. If I see men, women, and children being murdered and being starved to death, that's what I'm watching. You can't tell me that's not a genocide. You can't tell me that's not ethnic cleansing. That's what's going on the Gaza Strip.
The regular, everyday individual, the terrorist group that came into a country and attempted to commit a genocide against Israel. They would have committed a genocide against Israel to a large proportion if it wasn't for the IDF and if it wasn't for the Iron Dome. Let's not forget they shot 4,000 missiles into Israel. They tried to kill everybody. The IDF is going in strategically. I wish that people had not died. I wish that they could end the war so there's no suffering. I wish that Hamas wasn't stealing food. The UN confirmed that 96% of all the aid is being looted. I wish that Hamas wasn't doing those things. I wish that
it's
Hamas
being looted by the IDF and Benjamin Netanyahu. They're confiscating the aid and not allowing the people to receive it. What an idiot.
The approach of Israel, which means when the rockets go flying into Israel, the people go into bomb shelters. When rockets go flying into Gaza, the terrorists go into bomb shelters, and they make their people stay above ground to be the blunt force of what they receive in a war that they started for no reason. Hamas knew they could never beat the IDF in Israel. Why did they start the war? Why did they initiate conflict? Why did they rape people and do things like that and videotape it? Why do they still have hostages? And
you know the unpalatable answer, Officer Tatum. I'll come to Dave Smith as well, but the unpalatable answer to that, maybe they did it precisely to goad Israel into a massive overreaction, which would then make Israel and its government in particular hugely unpopular around the world, to the extent that the United Nations is convening today with the UK declaring a state of Palestine. They're going to be followed by other countries. Only really America and Israel's opposing this, but it may well be that Hamas, being a bunch of evil terrorists.
Exactly. Only people opposing that resolution is Israel and America. That's it. That the rest of the rest of the world, the rest of the members of the United Nations is for Israel having a state. Israel deserves a state because not Israel, Palestine deserves a state because they were there first. They were there first. So they damn sure deserve a state. But you just can't come and decide that you want the whole entire region and take the whole region and kill off the people.
Thought if we do this, Israel will massively overreact. They don't care about their own people dying. That's completely obvious. And it could well play into our longer term game plan. Who knows? But it could be that. In which case, they've fallen for a hideous sucker punch. Dave Smith, your response to lots to unpack there, but your response, and also taking in this news today about countries like the UK, declaring there is a state of Palestine.
Sure. Well, I mean, I don't know. I think Brennan kind of almost hit every single talking point there. So I don't know. I mean, I've been knocking all these down for years on
every single talking point of Benjamin Netanyahu. Every single one of them. He gave him a script and a check.
On your show here. The bottom line is just that it is just, look, to sit here and say that even as you say, obviously, Pierce, it's not like Hamas had to be rocket scientists to figure this out. This is what terrorism is. It's asymmetrical warfare. Exactly. The action is in the reaction. Osama bin Laden didn't think he could take down the United States of America by taking out our towers. He thought he could lure us into a war in Afghanistan and that might bankrupt us. It was the plan that our CIA coached him through in the late 70s and early 80s with luring the Soviets into Afghanistan. And so the idea that, and look, we did it.
Brandon is not even old enough to know this. He's no historian. He don't study. He's not even old enough to know this. He's oblivious to what Dave Smith is saying right now. He don't know that Osama bin Laden was a CIA operative of the United States, worked with the United States, and everybody that became enemies of the United States was once friends, and they did dirt with the United States, and it was held against them later. They do the dirt with you to get the dirt on you. Brandon Tatum is oblivious to this. Osama bin Laden was their hitman all over the world. He worked for the United States all over the world. Anybody they wanted offed, he was an economic hitman for the United States. Bin Laden. But he don't know about this. He knows nothing about this.
We blew $8 trillion in the Middle East since then. And so that's the idea here. And Israel's completely fallen into the trap. But of course, the reason why that Israel has done irreversible reputational damage, the reason why people are abandoning supporting this is really just twofold. Number one, it's clearly not in America's interest. And number two, this is just indefensible. Even if you say that, hey, look, Hamas goes down into the bomb shelters and leaves the civilians up there to be bombed. Okay, but then ain't there a moral question about whether it's the right thing to do to just drop those bombs on?
Exactly. They'll still bomb indiscriminately, knowing that they're bombing men, women, and children. They'll still do it. But Benjamin Netanyahu will come on a program and lie and say that the people who were killed were the aggressors, or they're hiding people in the facility they're in, like a school, a mall, a hospital, a mosque, or a church. They'll say they're hiding people. So that's the reason why they bombed it and killed innocent men, women, and children. Not soldiers. Not soldiers. They're killing civilians like this.
On the civilians when you know the terrorists are down in the towers. Hold on, you had a chance to go through all this stuff. So
I know, but I want you to. Can I just
you just went off on every talking point,
and I'll shut up. No, just explain that
okay,
too.
But I'm just going to finish.
Argument.
I'm just going to finish. Okay. Yeah. I'm going to finish what I did. Well, what they should do is embrace a two-state solution. Ultimately, they should stop occupying a people as they've been
done
doing
it 5 times, and the Arabs rejected it.
They're not.
Okay, now
5 times, and the Arabs rejected it.
Yeah, I get it. I know you're going to hit every Hasbro talking point. That's not true.
There's
been
facts.
Lots of books. No, it's not. It's a talking point. It is not true. The Palestinians have never once been offered a full-fledged state. There is not one of those 5 times that they were ever offered a full state. Even, by the way, that's not even your...
Dave Smith is sharp. He knows the difference between a truth and a talking point. A talking point can be repeated several times to it's believable. It doesn't make it the truth. So this nitwit, Brandon Tatum, he believes the talking points, but Dave Smith has the truth. Benjamin Netanyahu don't want a dual state. He wants the entire region. He actually said it. It's not hearsay. He said it.
Even your own Hasbro talking point, you're supposed to say 97% of what they wanted, which also is a lie. The point is that it doesn't, no matter what you're going to say here, Israel propped up Hamas for years to keep them in power so that
Exactly.
Netanyahu could thwart the creation of a Palestinian state, to then use them as a justification for mass slaughtering a captive people that you have kept stateless for 60 years is morally indefensible. And I'm sorry, I didn't realize I had to like actually paint the full thing out. When I was talking about the pro-life analogy, yes, being pro-life is about believing that life begins at conception, but baked in there is also the assumption that you think it's wrong to murder kids. Like the point is that yes, if you're pro-life, then you also
murder kids.
Yes, but you're supporting a policy that is doing just that.
There's no policy to murder kids. It's urban warfare. Unfortunately, people die.
Urban warfare. He reduced genocide to urban warfare. This dude is so damn stupid. Urban warfare, like they're in LA or Detroit somewhere or Chicago. Urban warfare. Pierce show not to pick them.
Die. There's no show me the policy that says you should murder kids in this.
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, that is, look, when you make a decision to drop a bomb on a building where you know there are children inside of it, yes, morally speaking, you murdered those children.
Phone calls. You told them
so
to
the leaflets make
evacuate.
it not murder. Okay. So how about when they don't?
So you're going to tell people to leave their home. Leaflets. This nigga said leaflets. Give them leaflets telling them they have to leave all their shit because a bomb coming and expect them to do it. This nigga's stupid.
There's no
How about this last attack?
There's no intent to murder them.
Wait, let me ask you a question. Follow up. How about when they don't? What about when they don't drop leaflets? What about when they don't have evacuation orders? They just did this in Gaza City yesterday. How about that? Is that now murder?
Well,
I
they
just
don't
took
have
away
to.
your excuses.
No. I could give you an example. They don't have to drop leaflets and give phone calls if they're
So then why are you bringing that up?
I'm saying when you're shooting weapons and Hamas is
because he's stupid. He makes excuses and jam himself up. The dude lied just like the same type of lies that Benjamin Netanyahu tell. He's telling the same exact lies. He got his assignment. He's on his assignment. Brandon Tatum has his assignment and he's on it.
Firing weapons and using as a military base, they don't have to give leaflets to give evacuation. It's that if it's a civilian building or something where they can eliminate having casualties, they will do that to the best of their ability. But there's some instances where they can't give notification because Hamas is operating out of these hospitals, operating out of mosques. And they have to do what they have to do in this warfare.
They have to. No, they don't. They actually don't have to.
What should they?
That's another talking point of Benjamin Netanyahu. They're operating out the mosque, they're operating out the hospital, they're operating out of malls, grocery stores. So they got to do what they got to do. Bomb and kill innocent men, women, and children. What an idiot!
They do this. By the way,
I love
what
Pierce.
should they do?
I love I love Pierce. I think it was Aaron Matei who coined this phrase. I could be wrong about that, but someone said the entire Israeli case rests on you saying that nothing justifies October 7th, but October 7th justifies anything. Like
good saying. Good saying. It's the same thing that United States did after 9/11. Same exact thing.
Nothing. There's you're sitting here. Yes. Look,
what should they do?
Pick one side or the other. One second. You can pick one side. Just I'll answer that question, but just interrupting my point with that question over and over again is just so I can't make my case. There is no. You can go tit for tat here. There's been terrorism on both sides. Israel has been occupying Gaza and the West Bank / controlling Gaza and the West Bank since 1967. There's going to be resistance to that. And then for you to say that resistance now justifies us slaughtering people by the tens of thousands, destroying all of Gaza is just, There's no logic in it. There's no morality in it. What should Israel have done? Number one, Benjamin Netanyahu should have resigned on October 8th. After his plan to prop up Hamas, being this genius right-winger that I'm going to keep Hamas in power because, in his words, he could control the height of the flame, and this will balance things and thwart a Palestinian state. When that blew up in his face, he should have resigned in disgrace that day. They should have had a real investigation about what actually happened on October 7th. Our late friend had some questions.
Benjamin Netanyahu knows he's wrong. That's why he's on the run, and he will not go to states where he know he'll be arrested at. How he diverted his flight pattern so he won't be in any area where he can be arrested. He knows he's safe here in the United States. He's safe here, but he's on the run because he has an international warrant for his arrest for committing genocide.
Questions about that, didn't he?
Yeah, he did.
They should have really looked into that, which we've never gotten to the bottom of. And then they should have done surgical strikes, targeted assassinations, as Israel has always done throughout their entire history with the terrorism problem. They have never, until Netanyahu, treated it as a problem for the regular old army.
Exactly.
And it should have culminated in a real peace process. They should have said, we are going to take out the people responsible for this by targeted strikes. And at the end of
Israel dropped bombs during peace negotiations. That's just how much that's how evil Netanyahu is. He ordered a strike. They dropped bombs during the negotiations.
End of that, we're ending the occupation. We're giving all of East Jerusalem, all of the West Bank, and all of Gaza to the Arabs. It's their decision what they want to do in the future. But if we are attacked, we will treat them as a foreign nation and go to war with them. That's what the response to October.
And by the way, Officer Tatum,
this.
I think the biggest mistake Netanyahu has made, of many actually, in terms of tactics and strategy, was the attack in Doha, which failed. It didn't kill any of the Hamas commanders, but the amount of fury that has created amongst the Arab countries, from Saudi Arabia, the UAE and others, but also apparently, according to Haaretz, amongst Mossad, who are absolutely furious about that attack on one of America's main allies in the Middle East, somewhere with 10,000 American troops in a base there, to just attack with impunity
during peace negotiations. And Donald Trump don't even care that some of our people was in that area during the attack. Don't even care.
And to attack people who were at that moment deliberating over a potential peace plan.
Exactly.
And then to fail anyway. So you cause all the mayhem without achieving the goal. It seemed to me symptomatic of where Netanyahu's got to. He's not achieving any of the goals here. He's just making things worse and worse.
I think that one could argue that. I'm not disagreeing. I think that there needs to be an investigation into it and figure out what should we do and what should we not do. America knew that he was going to do the attack. There's no way in the world Israeli jets could fly through airspace without America knowing about it and do that attack. So America gave the green light pretty much. And then we go, I want to go back to some of the things that Dave Smith said. You know, it sounds cute to act as if they're just indiscriminately bombing people. They're doing strategic strikes. They have to get approval to do strikes. We know that they're doing it. People don't like it. It's ugly. I get it. I hate that it's happening.
Picture Benjamin Netanyahu getting approval to do strikes in Israel or to do strikes on the Gaza Strip. This dude is stupid.
And I would have ended the war in 48 hours, and it would have been a mass casualty situation. However, we would have been done quicker, and it would have been 2 years. The two-state solution idea. They don't. Why are we lying to ourselves? They don't want a two-state solution. They want Israel to be absolved. They do not want a Jewish state. They made it clear. I don't know for how many years. Netanyahu. They removed.
It's the other way around. It's the other way around. Israel don't want a two-state solution. They want the whole entire region, not just the Gaza Strip. They want it all. And he'll go and he'll use the same talking points that Benjamin Netanyahu said, okay, we tried to negotiate. That's a talking point that you just believe like a damn idiot. It's only a talking point. It was never offered a dual state to the Palestinians. That was never offered. That's a lie, outright lie.
Jews from Gaza and gave it to them. And what did they do in return? They elected a terrorist organization that extracted funding and resources from them to build tunnels to create terrorism against Israel. They cannot live in peace with these people. They continue to fight against Israel and the Jewish state. And I don't understand why we're acting as if that's not so. They've given them their own sovereignty to a certain degree. Imagine if they had
do you
their
think,
own
Officer
state.
Tatum, do you think?
What's crazy about that is that he's saying that Israel gave something to Palestinians. Gave. He's using the word gave. That's something that should be theirs naturally, especially when they were there first. How could you come and take land and you decide that you're going to give somebody their sovereignty? You're going to give them sovereignty as if it's not theirs naturally.
Do you think, Officer Tatum, that Palestinians should have the same rights, human rights, as Israelis?
Let me put it in perspective.
It's a yes or no.
I will.
That's a yes or no question. A yes or no question. Simple.
Hang on.
I will.
No, you can't
I will
equivocate.
answer it.
You either believe that or you don't. The reason I'm asking you, it's so central.
Let me start with your. Let me answer your question first.
It's so central.
Let me answer your question first.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Good.
The answer is yes.
Good.
But let me articulate that there was a war fought, and Israel won the war, so they don't have to do anything for anybody.
Wait, what war? What war are you talking about?
1948. Was that not a war that was fought? They got attacked on all sides.
There's been many wars
after they rejected the two-state solution. After they rejected the two-state solution, a war was fought. They won. Every war that has been fought, Israel has won. They've been victorious. They don't owe Palestinians anything, but they're peaceful people.
Which war gave them? Which war gave them the right?
They don't owe them. They don't owe.
Brandon don't know what the hell he talking about. I don't understand because for one, he's a youngin. Dude's like in his 30s. He don't know what he's talking about. Outright lying and using talking points.
As a result, right? Yeah. No. Actually, I mean, they only owe them what we all owe each other, I suppose. But what?
I mean,
war
you can make
Israel,
that. You can make that argument, but that's not a real argument.
Yeah, it is. What war did Israel win that gave them the right to occupy the Palestinians in perpetuity for all of history?
Let's bring into. But first of all, I don't know why you think it's an occupation. Jews have lived in Israel and since the beginning of time, never ceasing to exist in Israel.
Now you're gonna go biblical. They've been in that area since 1948, not ever since the beginning of time. That's some stupid bullshit. Now you know that land was taken from the Palestinians and given to the Jewish people. I'm not saying they don't deserve a state, but stop using that biblical bullshit because it's bullshit.
Israel. They were the majority, became the minority.
Yes,
they
those
never
two things are not related at all.
Let me finish.
Yes.
Let me finish. What I'm saying is that
I think it's an occupation because it's a military occupation.
It's an occupation. You got to call it what it is. It's a occupation. It's a colonization. That's what it is. And he gonna go use some damn biblical term. Dude, stupid.
What I'm saying is that Jews have entitlement to the land. Palestinians don't have exclusive entitlement. So when a war is fought, the Jews can make the decision what they do with Palestinians or not. Just like in America, we can say what we want to do with the Native Americans or not. Let me finish. Let me finish my point and I'll answer your question.
Sure.
Just real quick. It'll be a couple seconds. But because we have humanity and dignity, we allow for Native Americans in America to have reservations and we support them in all of the.
But this dumbass nigga don't talk about how his people are treated. He justified how his people are treated, and he referred to his own people as they and them.
Above. Because Israel and Jews have dignity, they allowed them to have swaths of the West Bank, and they allowed them to have Gaza, where they elected their own government system. Now, Do Israel have control? I see why. Can't you see? If they had absolutely no control, they had no idea what was coming in through the southern border, through the sea, how much more of a terrorist attack would we see? When you oppress people, that causes hatred. You cannot expect people to, when you want to control everything they do and you want to be oppressive to them and you want to deny them anything, that's not going to, it's going to breed some contention, it's going to breed some hate. And in the back of anybody's mind is being oppressed. If they get a chance to get your ass, they're gonna get your ass. And that's with anybody, foreign and domestic. In Israel, it will be even more massive. So I understand that.
Okay,
but when they were offered a two-state solution, why did they reject it?
All right, Dave.
Again, I don't know what period of time you're talking about, what war you're talking about, but so here's a major difference. You might notice this, Pierce, between Native Americans, say in the United States of America. You know, they have a citizenship and voting rights.
Exactly.
And so at a certain point, if you're going to say okay, yes, that's right. Now, how about the Palestinians living under Israeli control in the West Bank? They do not have citizenship or voting rights. And so if
they don't have citizenship in Israel.
Right,
they
and
do.
Israel's the government that's
elections.
Controlling.
They have elections, don't they?
Listen, Brennan, think about what you're advocating for. That's not you're not addressing the point here. They don't have citizenship in that. You just said that, hey, you understand why Israel is going to control these areas because in your estimation, there'd be more violence if they didn't control these areas. Now, I disagree with that estimation, but whatever. Okay, but then you're saying Israel has control and these people don't have citizenship or voting rights in Israel. If Israel is controlling Gaza and the West Bank and they've got millions of people there who don't have citizenships, don't have any say in that government, what would you call that? By the way, we could I could make the argument that there'd be less crime if we just occupied high crime black neighborhoods in America, stripped all the people of their voting rights, of their civil rights, of their natural.
Brandon Tatum will agree to this. And because he would think it would exclude him. He would agree to this because he think it would exclude him. He must, either he don't have mirrors in his house or he don't look at them. One of the two. He don't have mirrors in his house or he don't look at his mirrors. I can understand why he wouldn't, because if I was like him, I wouldn't want to face myself either. I would not.
Natural rights, and we just had a military occupation. But I think we would all accept you're not allowed to do that to people because we're like
Dave, your argument
living in the post-enlightenment.
Your argument is not a real argument. They don't.
You keep saying that, but you can't take Gaza.
It on. Hey, listen, okay, let's give it. If they actually
Israel doesn't control Gaza.
No. If they actually control Gaza, okay, let me answer. If they actually control Gaza the way you're saying it, they would have never elected Hamas, and they would have never built tunnels, and they would never stole funding and manipulated the people, and they would never treat women the way they do, and they would never throw people off buildings.
Why would they have never done that? Why would they have never done that if what I'm saying is true?
If Israel controlled them, they don't control them. They left them to their own devices.
Okay, so just to be
and in the West Bank,
be very clear,
the PLO has manipulated the people. That's why they have a separate election in Gaza, because the PLO had manipulated the people in the West Bank. And they didn't want that governance. So they are governing themselves. Okay. However, you will never see, I've been to Israel, you will never see Jews in Palestine or what you call the West Bank. You would never see them in Gaza. But there are hundreds of thousands of Arabs and Palestinians that work in Israel. I was there, I saw it. I'm even surprised October the 7th
nobody's denying
happened.
that. No, everybody knows. Israel.
What I'm saying is that Israel is not treating Palestinians the way that people are acting like they are.
Okay, I want to.
They gave them freedom.
Okay, I've got to listen. I've got to wrap things. I've got to wrap things. But I wanted to ask Dave one question before we wrap. It's just this: this decision by the UK and other countries to declare a state of Palestine has been, ridiculed by Israelis as simply playing into Hamas's hands, giving them a reward for October the 7th. Is it meaningful to you at all?
Well, I mean, yeah, I think it's somewhat I mean, look, it's obviously a gesture more than anything else, but I do think it's significant that there's at least the feeling that there's a need to make the gesture, I think is a result of public opinion shifting so greatly on this. But, I got to say to this, look, first of all, I'll just say a couple things. Number one, right after 9/11, it was Colin Powell, the wisest member of George W. Bush's government, which is not saying much, who went to George W. Bush and said, you got to do a two-state solution now. Like, you have record high approval ratings. 9/11 just happened. This is the time we can get it done. And the reason Colin Powell said that was not because he wanted to give the Palestinians something, but because he knew that this was right at the center of the cause of why there's so much hatred for Americans in the Muslim world. And that we had every single president of my lifetime, with the exception of Trump, wanted a two-state solution. None of them could ever get it done. None of them could ever get it done, in large part because of the enormous power of the Israel lobby in the United States of America.
The Arabs rejected it.
Israel
agreed.
I know. We heard you say that. Anyway.
No, you need to talk about that.
Yeah,
Israel
you're wrong,
agreed
but
to
okay.
every single two-state solution.
Okay, yeah, right. Okay. Anyway,
You're telling me I'm wrong?
You know what?
For the 15th time, you're 100% wrong. Benjamin Netanyahu, the longest-serving prime minister, the longest-serving prime minister in Israeli history, has made at the center of his entire career thwarting a Palestinian state. He has said this in his own words over and over again. You don't know what you're talking about if you think
lying.
that Israel has just been trying.
Check.
No,
people
you're
that are
just
watching
dumb.
this fact check.
You don't know what you're talking about, dude.
Now you want to attack
You're
me?
calling me a liar.
Address the
you're calling
issue.
me a liar, dude, and you're full of shit.
Because
you don't know
it's
shit.
factual.
You don't know anything
I'll
about
tell you.
this.
Officer Tatum. Wait a sec. I actually think.
I did what?
If you want, I actually think. Listen, Officer Tatum.
I agree with Dave. Brandon don't know shit. Not a damn thing. He's just using talking points. He's just being a puppet, hand puppet, and sock puppet, regurgitating talking points that he don't know the history of. He don't even know the history of what's going on. I don't understand why Pierce will have this numbskull on his platform.
I've interviewed Bill Clinton a number of times, and he was emphatic about the fact the closest they came was when he says Arafat walked away from what many people now see was probably the best deal that was ever going to be on the table. I also think the assassination of Rabin was one of those moments from which I don't think anything has ever really recovered from that.
All of this is before this dude was even born. He wasn't even born. This dude was born in the 1980s. He wasn't even born. So he's oblivious to what Pierce and Davis talking about. He don't know. And he damn sure didn't study it.
Extremists on his own side, right?
By a Netanyahu fan.
Right,
Yeah.
and that may well be one of the reasons Netanyahu doesn't want to go down the same road. We just don't know. He acts in self-interest and everything else. Look, I've got to leave it there. I've got to leave it there. I'm sorry. It's been a great debate. You guys have been great. I really appreciate it. But I have got to move on. Thank you both.
Now I'm going to go to Algeria and Pakistan, straight up confronting Israel at the United Nations, at the World Council. Nothing they could say about what the man from Pakistan was saying. The representative from Pakistan was saying nothing that they could say about what Algeria and Pakistan was saying.
I'm obliged to take the floor to respond to some comments. The representative of Israel perhaps did not listen attentively to all council members and other speakers in today's debate. And in our view, it is unacceptable, indeed ludicrous, for an aggressor, an occupier, a serial violator of UN Charter and international law, that is Israel, to abuse this chamber and disrespect the sanctity of this council. And this is not the first time. And by pointing fingers on others, baseless assertions primarily aimed at masking its own illegal actions and violations of international law. President, but that's not at all surprising. It is an occupier that does not listen to anyone, that does not pay heed to any advice, even from its friends, if there are any left, that refutes, and not just refutes, it threatens members of the international community, international media, international human rights and humanitarian organizations, doesn't listen to the ICJ or the ICC, and threatens the UN and its senior officials. And it does that with impunity, shielded by its apologists who time and again acquiesce in its illegal actions and defiance of the international community. And like all occupiers, despite being the aggressor, it feigns and plays the victim. But today,
He got it right. They are the aggressor playing the victim.
it is totally exposed. President, this council has spent decades discussing the situation in the Middle East and the Palestinian question. Meeting after meeting, we devote hours to this agenda. It is not because of anyone else. It is because of Israel that refuses to vacate its illegal occupation, and that blatantly violates the resolutions of this council. It's because of that we have these discussions. Israel also chose to refer to an unrelated incident. And
Israel is not even adhering to the Geneva Convention, the rules of engagement with war. They're not even adhering to that. They're just bombing and killing and shooting indiscriminately, not caring who they kill. And I wonder where they got that from. That sounds familiar to me. The indiscriminately bombing, not caring who they kill.
and make misleading remarks regarding Pakistan in an effort to justify its own illegal actions and violations of international law. Pakistan's position on that incident has been clearly stated and is publicly available. The international community is well aware of Pakistan's frontline role and sacrifices in the international community's fight against terrorism. The entire world, including our partners, acknowledge that Al-Qaeda was largely decimated due to Pakistan's counterterrorism efforts. And we remain committed in this global, collective endeavor. And we cannot accept insinuations from an irresponsible rogue state that is, in fact, the perpetrator of worst kind of state terrorism that we are witnessing in Gaza.
Absolutely. It's the worst in modern day history what Israel is doing on the Gaza Strip to the Palestinians. Yes, it is. Outright genocide.
And in fact, in the occupied Palestinian territories for decades. And we reject any false analogy, as has also been done by Qatar. For whatever way it interprets the statements in this council, the occupying power must go back and read carefully the statement issued by the Security Council today. And let me read it out loud here. A statement that normally should have been stronger, but nevertheless, it has been unanimously adopted by the Council. The members of the Security Council expressed their condemnation of the recent strikes in Doha, the territory of a key mediator, on 9 September. They expressed deep regret at the loss of civilian life. Council members underscored the importance of de-escalation and expressed their solidarity with Qatar. They underlined their support for the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Qatar in line with the principles of the UN Charter. Council.
I want to take a promotion break and promote my wife's book, Fire 2, the finale. If you don't have your copy of Fire 2, the finale, you need to get your copy of Fire 2, the finale. Get your copy of Fire 2, the finale, paperback or Kindle at Amazon. Get yourself a copy. It's a fire book. I have both, Fire 1 and Fire 2. Get your books. Get your copies of Fire 1 and Fire 2. Finale. On paperback or Kindle. If you want a good read, get your book. Go to Amazon, Fire Book 2, the finale.
I don't know how I got here. I just know I'm never going back. Just when I thought things were already crazy, it gets worse.
I'm back.
Quan?
Sapphire struggles to deal with her husband's alleged betrayal and coming to terms with Quan being alive after thinking he was deceased. Devante tries to keep a level head while dealing with family issues and unexpected disloyalty. Memories of Dre enters Devante's life in a way that he would have never imagined.
Fire Part 2, the finale.
Now back to the regular scheduled program. Back to Algeria and Pakistan. Stun the World confronts Israel live at the UN after the Qatar strikes.
Council members recalled their support for the vital role that Qatar continues to play in mediation efforts in the region and alongside Egypt and the United States. Council members underscored that releasing the hostages, including those killed by Hamas, and ending the war and suffering in Gaza must remain our priority. In this regard, they reiterated the importance of the ongoing diplomatic efforts of Qatar, Egypt, and the United States, and called for the parties to seize the opportunity for peace. That is why we are here this afternoon in this council. I thank you.
I thank the representative of Pakistan for the statement. The representative of Israel has asked for the floor to make a further statement. I give them.
Thank you, Mr. President. You know, if the distinguished colleague from Pakistan wanted to read the statement, he could have done it at the beginning of the session. But I want to refer to your words. You know, maybe you got offended from the word of my speech, and I apologize for that. But I make sure that in my speech I stick to the facts. And the fact is that Osama bin Laden was killed in Pakistan, and no one condemned the US. And when other countries in this council attack terrorists, no one condemns them. And that is the issue of double standards. When you apply different standards on Israel, then the standard you apply on yourselves, that is the problem of this institution. So yes, you cannot change the fact that 9/11 happened, and today we mark this day. You cannot change the fact that Osama bin Laden.
Now, just what I said. What he's doing is making October 7th their 9/11, and they're comparing them. They're comparing October 7th to 9/11, and the United States under George W. Bush killed tens of thousands of people under the guise of fighting terrorism. It was not a war on terror. It was the war of terror, and killed people that had nothing to do with 9/11. Osama bin Laden and Afghanistan were supposed to be the ones who did it. That's who they said did it. But we ended up in Iraq too, arresting the president, trying him, convicting him of crimes he didn't do, and then hanging him. And George W. Bush actually made fun of that, looking under stuff, saying there's no weapons of mass destruction here, and they went under the guise of they had weapons. The only weapons that Iran and Iraq had was weapons that the United States gave them to fight each other. They act like people wasn't living when this was going on. They know what weapons that Iran and Iraq had because they have the receipts to those weapons. They were furnished to them so they can go to war and kill each other.
Was in Pakistan and he was killed on your territory. But I would ask you, when you criticize us, and I'm sure it will continue in the future, think about the issue of double standards, which standards you apply to your country and which standards you apply to Israel. Thank you, Mr. President.
I thank the representative of Israel for the statement. And I'll give the floor to those council members who wish to make statements. I give the floor to the representative of Algeria.
Thank you, President. At the outset, I would like to thank Under-Secretary General Di Carlo for her briefing. We meet once again in the wake of yet another grave and unlawful act committed by the Israeli authorities. In addition to the endless record of their systematic violations of international law, Israel behaves as if law does not exist, as if borders are illusions, as if sovereignty itself is a dispensable notion, as if the UN Charter is an ephemeral text. Meanwhile, in Gaza, innocent lives are annihilated by the thousands. The world watches helplessly, horrific image of destruction, devastation, and human despair. Yet, even that current carnage in Gaza is not enough for the Israeli authorities. In the span of days, Israel has struck Syria, Lebanon, Yemen, and now a renowned peace broker, the state of Qatar. This is not strength. It is recklessness. It is a sign of madness. It is the conduct of an extremist government unborn by immunity, by impunity. A government dragging the region and the whole world toward the abyss. Mr. President, Algeria strongly condemns and denounces the cowardly Israeli aggression that targeted the Qatari capital, Doha. We express our full solidarity with the brotherly state and people of Qatar. The recent attack in Doha is more than a violation of sovereignty of a UN member. It is an affront to diplomacy itself. It targeted a commended mediator working tirelessly to end the bloodshed in Gaza. It is irrefutable proof that the Israeli occupying power does not seek peace, does not seek peace, does not seek the release of hostages, does not seek the end of hostilities, but thrive on war. President, Israel persists in relying solely on the arrogance of brutality, mistaking oppression for power and coercion for security. Yet, history taught us that the path of domination yields neither peace nor stability. Violence brings violence. Impunity breeds war. Silence in the international community and of this very Security Council fuels chaos.
What he's saying is the absolute truth. I'm going to move on from here and go to the UN walks out on Benjamin Netanyahu when he comes to speak at the United Nations. Everybody walked out on him because all he's going to do is lie any damn way. So why stand there and put yourself through it?
Please, order in the hall.
With everything going on right now, allow yourself this moment of joy as on the 80th anniversary of the...
Shout out to the Rational National. This video is courtesy of the Rational National. Shout out to him. Shout out to Piers Morgan. The earlier video was courtesy to Piers Morgan. Fair use for criticism, entertainment purposes, and educational purposes.
The UN's General Assembly, more than 100 diplomats from over 50 countries walked out on Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu as he entered the hall to give his speech. Now, you may be experiencing deja vu, as I covered this thing exactly a year ago when this also happened, though the walkout appears to be a little more widespread this time, and some of the speeches that I'll get to, or at least in particular one speech from the president of Colombia, is incredibly forceful and is really calling on other countries to do something in a real way. And I'm going to play that. It's an incredible speech. But I also have to show you again, again, this is a different time now. This is happening a second time. But it's definitely worth watching the various angles and the look on Netanyahu's face as this happens again. But before I get to those various angles and a lot more in this video, I just want to show you how he had to get to New York, as he had to fly a circuitous route to the UN summit.
Exactly. A circuitous route to the UN summit to avoid arrest, because Europe was going to arrest him. If he landed in Europe, he would have gotten arrested.
But to avoid arrest in Europe. This is incredible. So as the Guardian writes here, this is the route he had to take, avoiding Europe completely. As they write, the Wing of Zion, Israel's equivalent of the U.S. Air Force One, did cross territory over Greece and Italy, but then turned south toward the Strait of Gibraltar before heading across the Atlantic. The Israeli government did not give an official reason for the routing, although Israeli media reported it was to avoid overflying a country that would be obligated to arrest him. Shorter, more fuel-efficient routes may have flown across France, Spain, Portugal, Ireland, and the UK. Those countries have all signed the ICC statute and would be legally required to arrest and surrender Netanyahu to the Hague-based court if he entered their territory. Just good to be reminded that the world's not crazy, that the vast majority of countries are on the right side. Even if they're not doing enough, doing as much as they could, they're on the right side. Of course, the big issue being the U.S. is the massive barrier to any kind of progress, the fact that they have veto power. And we'll get to a clip when we get to the leader of Finland who discusses the insanity of that. But let's get to the first angle of this walkout. It is just a fun thing to watch.
Please, order in hall.
You love to see it. Now,
he actually should be speaking to an empty room. He don't deserve respect. Nobody should have stayed there and listened to that, because all he was going to do was lie. So everybody should have walked out. He should have been speaking to an empty room. Echoes.
Now, I did cut it down a bit there. It goes on for a while, but I really wanted to get to a zoom in of Jackass's face there. So the Washington Post actually has another angle, or I should say an angle that's where you see more of Adolf. Here is here's Jackass himself.
Order in hall.
What a clown.
Please order in the hall and please be seated.
Look at those empty seats. Evil personified. So here is fantastic photo. The empty seats tells you a lot. And here is an angle from the actual walkout.
First time.
Good for them. There's absolutely no reason for anyone to hear what Netanyahu has to say. A war criminal under an ICC arrest warrant, which, by the way, any news report about Netanyahu should frame it that way. It should be in the headline. War criminal has this to say. Because I'm seeing a lot of headlines right now about Netanyahu's really angry at this country or this country or this country. Why should we care? If you want to print what he's angry about, fine. But give us the context of who the...
He should be referred to as a war criminal every time there's a report done on him. It should be this war criminal, Benjamin Netanyahu, the one who's wanted with an international warrant for his arrest for crimes against humanity and war crimes by the ICC. That's how people should refer to him.
Who the man is up front. Tell your audience, this is somebody who was under an arrest warrant for war crimes. So, given that context, sure, we can hear what he has to say, but understand what you're dealing with. So I'll just give you this since I'm
dealing with a liar who's not going to give you any truth, going to go up there and make excuses of why he's committing these crimes against humanity, these war crimes, and he's going to lie and justify why he's doing it. So why sit there and put yourself through those lies? Everybody should have just walked out.
I have no interest in playing any of his speech. Netanyahu tells UN that the war will continue amid global backlash. Again, not a war. A war assumes the other side has a military. There is no military in Gaza. This is a genocide. Israel is facing deepening global opposition, which the prime minister attributed to anti-Semitism, which is fucking hilarious, and libelous lies. Yeah, okay. So there's also walkout outside the UN. Thousands of New Yorkers taken to the streets demanding an end to the genocide in Palestine and calling for the arrest of war criminal Netanyahu. A lot of people.
They should have arrested him when he was in New York. As soon as he landed, wherever airport he landed in, he should have been arrested and taken into custody for the crimes that he's committed against humanity. I want to thank everybody for joining me this evening. I appreciate it. Thanks to Key Norfolk. Thanks to Disturbing the Peace. Thanks for Warfare K. Thank you all for joining me. I appreciate it. Thank everybody who joined me. People, whoever didn't leave a comment in the chat, thanks for joining me. Again, get your copy of Fire 2, the finale. I'm going to get started reading. I just received mine this evening. I'm going to start reading as soon as I finish here. Until next time, this is The Enemy's Public. I am Bro.Nasir. Like, share, subscribe, leave a comment in the comment section. Peace.
Yeah.